So good morning, good afternoon, good evening around the world. My name is Doug Brunke. I'm the founder and CEO of Global Chamber, and we have a very special conversation today. We were talking before we started the program here today that, more than ever, it's important to stay engaged with what's going on in the world because it's a very dynamic situation. From country to country, there are differences in financial situations, in government stability, in market opportunities, and how various products and services are being implemented country by country, which creates opportunities for entrepreneurs. And so, congratulations on you for taking the step and being part of this conversation today, because part of staying on top of those opportunities certainly is being engaged on some regular basis to understand what those are, being within a trusted community that you can trust people with. Even when you see an opportunity, sometimes you have to question, who do you work with? And that's not always self-evident. Within Global Chamber, at least, what we work very hard at is vetting our members and vetting the community and understanding who is trustworthy and who is relatively easy to work with and sometimes very easy to work with, which is the ideal, and professional and ethical and all those good things. That doesn't always happen outside Global Chamber. When it almost always happens here, and when it doesn't happen, we get pretty involved, and there are some specific examples that come to mind for all of us, right? We've had good and bad experiences, and sometimes the bad experiences ring out. But part of what we believe in is continually vetting and understanding not only the market opportunities but the people involved. Another really important part is for your business having the systems and processes that are both modern and up to date and keep us on the right track. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. I'm a very strong personal believer in systems that work for your business. We don't always follow them ourselves. I wish we would, but we're getting better at it. One of those systems that I've learned to believe in is EOS. And one of the people that I very strongly believe in is Tiffany Ablola, who's our speaker today. She's an EOS implementer, an official EOS implementer. She's based in Southern California. I've met her in person. I've seen her at work. I've seen the kind of work that she does for her clients. And so she's going to be, and it's all very positive. So you're going to hear a little bit more about EOS and how it can be applied not only for your business, but maybe for businesses that you work with. And so, Tiffany, thank you so much for your leadership. You're on the Global Chamber Los Angeles Advisory Board. It was great to meet you in person at the World Korea Business Convention in Anaheim recently. And then I think earlier this year, we met with Gunjan Bagla when we were in Woodland Hills for a conversation about India as well. Thank you for your global leadership, for your leadership in EOS, and we look forward to hearing the conversation today. I think you've got a presentation, and then there'll be time for questions at the end. How would you like to structure it? What's the best way?
Yeah, so I am prepping the slides for presentation. Can everyone see the background of the slides?
Yeah, we can see you on there too. That's
Perfect.
pretty cool.
All right. Yeah, always good to get the tech out of the way. Thank you for the lovely context and introduction. Doug is amazing, and I'm sure that's why a lot of you are here. I'm really happy to share this information with you today. What I'm going to do is try to keep it to about 30 to 40 minutes. Typically, something like this takes about an hour and a half, but we're going to go really fast. And I want you to ask questions during, and I have saved some time towards the end for more questions. So we'll get right into it so that we can make the most use of our time. And just throw it into the chat, say yes, or put an emoji into the chat if you have heard of EOS before today. Or you can raise your hands with the reactions. So, okay, great. Charles has heard of it. I know Doug has. So, for some of you who are familiar, that's great. You're going to get some more information today. Some of you who are new, I want to make sure you walk away with at least one tool that you can use for yourself or someone that you know. And it's all about sharing information and being as helpful as possible. So, I will get right into it. Let me start my timer just to make sure we are on track. Okay, so get a grip on your business. 6 keys to getting what you want from your entrepreneurial company. So, this is what the talk is going to be about today. This is our agenda. Really simple. Getting to know everyone, keeping it simple again, and getting results. So, a little bit about you. Um, who here has, actually, I want to hear everyone to put in the chat where you're from. So I know we got some Southern California people in here, someone from Canada. This is what's great about Global Chamber. You never know where everyone's coming in from. And feel free to unmute and just share as well. We got New York. I'm in Orange County, Houston. Wonderful. This is what I love about Global Chamber. Puerto Rico. Awesome. All right. So who here would like to unmute and share what you would like to get out of this today? My goal is to give you tools to walk away with, but I also want to hear what you're curious about and what you'd like to get out of this. Ooh, thank you for checking in from Park City, Utah.
You want us to just unmute and jump in? I can't remember.
Yes, please. Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, very nice to be here, Tiffany. Charles Bernard, very excited to be a member of Global Chamber. The thing I'd like to get out of it is partnership opportunities, because we have a tool that works really well alongside EOS. We have a very similar mindset. We focus on sales, revenue, and profit generation. But where I think we're a little different is we go across the entire organization, not just working with sales and marketing. And I think EOS does something similar. So any opportunity to bring out methodology and product as a partner to EOS would be helpful.
Awesome. Perfect. We'd love to talk to you more about that. All right. And if anyone else has anything to add, feel free to unmute and add it in the chat, but I will move us along to the rest of it. A little bit about me real quick. As Doug said, I'm an EOS implementer. I come from a prior career as an employment lawyer and did that for about 8-9 years. And I just fell into EOS when colleagues told me how much it really, really changed their businesses and personal lives and the people problems within the business. So as an employment lawyer, I basically dealt with people problems all day long. And unfortunately, there were some toxic workplaces along with that. So teams that usually are interested in applying principles of EOS are really proactive. They're looking to create an organization and a culture that attracts people intentionally and keeps people there. And it's a sustainable organization in that way. So everybody has probably heard lately, it's really hard to keep people or find great people right now. So that is a really big part of why I do this. And I'm also a Colby certified consultant, which we could talk about another time, but I love adding pieces of the puzzle to who you are as a person and how you problem solve or work. And so Colby is not a personality assessment, it's about conation and how you problem solve. So that's actually a tool that we teach within EOS. So ask me about it anytime. I love talking about it. So for a lot of EOS companies, the reason they decide to do the whole process is they're frustrated with lack of control, or maybe someone is exerting too much control. Profit is not where they want, and the people issues that I mentioned earlier. Hitting the ceiling can be a problem as well. You can hit the ceiling at an individual level, an organizational level, or even the department level. And then sometimes teams feel that nothing is working, which is really frustrating, right? And on the flip side, some organizations have grown so much and so fast that they felt like it just wasn't done in a way that was intentional, had processes behind it. And maybe the people that help them grow are not necessarily the people who are going to take them to the next level of the organization. Or someone wants to get out of running the business in the day-to-day. Often you have founders who really want to start a new project or a new business, or want to go be an owner only and not be in the day-to-day, or sell. So there's a lot of reasons people look to something like EOS. And again, please let me know if you have any questions at all as we talk through this, and I'm saving time at the end as well. So what is EOS? I know some of you are familiar, and this is the model of EOS, and it has 6 components, and the entrepreneurial business is in the middle. So you have vision, data, process, traction, issues, and people. And through the years, the idea of EOS is that these concepts are not necessarily something new. They're things that have been around and they've worked. And the idea is to bring something accessible and simple so that you can take it to leadership team, have them master these tools and concepts, and then elevate everyone around them. Because as you elevate yourself and the people around you, the organization grows and improves as well. And not only that, it helps create a great culture that you actually intend to create, and healthy communication and interaction between your team members. So this is a quote from the founder, Gino Wickman: "Vision without traction is hallucination." So the idea behind this is that a lot of organizations have a lot of vision on where they're going, but if you don't have accountability or clarity on how you're going to get there, it can oftentimes look like hallucination or be very confusing to everyone else in the organization. So that's the idea behind this quote. The idea within EOS in the model is to train leadership teams to get to 80% strong in all of these components. The idea is that, yes, it'd be nice to be 100% strong, but that doesn't always happen because reality, right? So the goal is to get to 80%. And oftentimes organizations, I'll move a little bit so you can see the bar. A lot of organizations start somewhere around 20%, 20 to 40. And there's an organizational checkup that we use to measure this. So within vision, there's 8 questions, and I'll go through the components of the model very quickly. There's 8 questions, and that lives in the vision traction organizer. So if anyone wants a copy of any of these tools, please reach out. Happy to share all of this with you if you're interested in working on it, whether you could use in your personal life even. So we can talk about that outside of this. But the Vision Traction Organizer is meant to be a simple 2-pager tool. So has anyone run into a really long strategic plan where nobody else outside of leadership team has any idea what it is and what it means to them? It's a show of hands or emojis on Zoom if that's something you've encountered before, or if you know teams that are disconnected from the vision of the organization. That happens frequently, and it's a very high percentage of teams in companies. And there's been studies done where people really are just completely disconnected from the vision of the organization and their role in how that's going to happen. So that's why the Vision Traction Organizer is 2 pages. The 8 questions correlate to these boxes. So if you look at core values, there's a box for about 5 core values. And the idea and why we start off with this is that these should be meaningful and useful to the organization on a day-to-day basis. It shouldn't just be some nice words that are on the wall that you walk by and say, oh, okay, that's pretty, it sounds nice. You're using these to be intentional about recognizing people who fit the core values and act out on them, and to convey them to people as you hire them and onboard them and recognize and reward. So this is a very intentional use of core values. And a lot of teams even use it to guide partnerships, vendors, to determine whether a vendor is a good fit for their organization, and then even contractors sometimes. So it's a very, it's a living and very important aspect within EOS. And so core values, I love that because it definitely develops your culture, and putting it first, that's the main reason. So you can be intentional about what type of organization you're building and the people who are part of it. The next aspect is the core focus. So this is question number 2. Oftentimes it's your mission statement. It could be a purpose, cause, or a passion, and then your niche, what you do better, your specialty. Next one is your 10-year target. So if you've heard of the phrase big, hairy, audacious goal, this is commonly what the 10-year target is. What do you want from your business? It could be anywhere from 5 to 30 years out. I have teams that want to sell in closer to 5 years, so that's their big, hairy, audacious goal. Others have it a little bit further out than 10 years, and maybe they've just been around for a long time, and they're talking at like 15 years out to make a movement happen. So this is your 1-year goal. I mean, your number 1 goal, kind of your North Star. And you notice there's not that many lines because it's supposed to be very simple but straightforward and motivating. Something, for example, could be Nike's was crush Adidas. Very simple, very straightforward, but it doesn't get into the micro, like, of the details. Then we have marketing strategy. For people who are familiar with marketing, this is not a completely inclusive of everything marketing strategy, but at the very minimum, you want to make sure that everyone in the organization is aligned on the target market, your 3 uniques, a proven process, and if you have one, a guarantee. So those things are all really critical. And sometimes there's sales and marketing teams that aren't completely clear on certain things. So it's nice to have something like this in a document that everyone can see and knows that this is what we agreed on as an organization. And the nice thing about guarantees, it's not always a money back guarantee type of thing. And part of what you work on as an organization is decide what resonates with you, what applies to the industry you're in, and what are you comfortable with. 3-year picture. So once you have your big, hairy, audacious goal, how are you going to make that happen, right? And we back it up into approximately 3 years. So you have a future date, you have a revenue goal, you have a profit goal, usually a percentage, and you have measurables, which could be something like, let's say, X number of products sold or X number of recurring customers per year. Depends on your industry and what you really care about as a measurable on this document. And then we talk about, what does it look like physically? How many employees do you have? How many physical locations do you have? What are your key hires at this point? Maybe your territory or expansion goals. Are you going to be in another country? And things like that. Like, are you going to expand your service offerings? So this is where you start to paint the picture of how you're going to get to that big, hairy, audacious goal. And if it works, if you close your eyes and you read it out loud and you can see it, that's the test for the 3-year picture. Any questions on this as I'm speeding through it? Okay, so next side is the traction side of the vision traction organizer. We get into the 1-year plan. Again, you'll see these are similar to what we saw in the 3-year. And we do that on purpose because at the 1-year plan, you still want to have those goals. Now, the 1-year plan has goals for the year of the organization. And then you go into rocks, which is the 90-day pulsing period within EOS. And so as you do that, you have rocks for the quarter, and rocks are another word for goals. Has anyone seen the Oh yeah, hi Catherine. So you have a great question. Where do we start if we don't have anything implemented? If you're interested in learning more, just let me know. I'm happy to send you a book to read, and there's a lot of free resources that I can send you as well, like this and a lot of ebooks too. So that's a great question on, well, what do we do first? So feel free to reach out for that. And then you can start looking at the VTO and get an idea. So I'll share some more tools that are related to it. So rocks, has anyone heard of Stephen Covey and the idea of rocks and goals? There's a really old video out there where Stephen Covey is doing a presentation, and there's someone who comes up, an executive at an organization, and this person is trying to fit giant rocks into this glass container, and the container is already full of pebbles. And those are your day-to-day fires that you're trying to put out, or the little things that pop up. She can't fit everything into this container. And that's really the illustration of rocks. What you prioritize gets attention will get done. So you have rocks for the quarter, and the idea is that every 90 days, typically people tend to accomplish a significant amount or lose motivation. And so we need to recheck on what's going on with these rocks. And then you assign it to someone, just one person, because accountability gets fuzzy and unclear if you have assigned it to multiple people. And then you have the issues list. This is a long-term list of what's going on in the organization as far as obstacles, opportunities, and ideas. So issues are not always negative. And that's what I love about this. You're putting it out there for everyone in the organization to see what you care about, and perhaps you can't resolve it this quarter. So that's what goes on the long-term issues list. And I'll talk more about that in a second. All right. So shared by all, that's the next bullet point. And getting a vision and a strategic plan shared by all is a lot of work because it takes a lot of repetition, sharing, and explaining. So that's why that's the second bullet point of vision. All right. And what I mean by that as well, everyone has read this 2-pager and they get it. They understand the vision for the organization, and everyone would explain it the same way. And that's a lot easier to say than actually do. That's why the document is meant to be simple. All right, people. So this is the next component. I love talking about this one. The first aspect of that is having the right people. And that's where we use the people analyzer. This is a fabulous way to do a gut check and also assign something technical and factual to things that can feel subjective at times. So this is an example of the first part of a people analyzer. EOS has 5 core values. So you see this on the top, and then you see people's names on the left. You assign them a plus minus, or a minus. And then you create a bar, which is basically for your organization, the minimum that someone should have in order to pass the right person analysis. And plus means, yeah, most of the time, this person is definitely doing the right thing, doing what they say. And the idea behind the core values is also that you have stories around them, so everyone has the same understanding of what a core value means. For example, integrity could mean something much different to me than the next person you ask. So that's why stories are so critical in a situation like this, because if you're going to expect people to have integrity and show up with integrity in an organization, you got to be clear what that means. And then I also encourage teams to use phrases that are a little more unique than integrity. So for example, do the right thing. That's another way to say integrity. And so it's really customizing it to what your organization values and needs from the people around them. Plus minus is sometimes this person embodies a core value, sometimes not. Minus is not really. So that is the first part of a people analyzer. And the right seat. So the right people in the right seat on the bus. And some of you may have heard that phrase before. So how do you figure out if they're in the right seat? So this might look like an org chart, but it's actually an accountability chart. And the main difference is that it's not about ego or titles. Sometimes you will still get the benefit of, okay, who reports to who in this? But the main purpose of the accountability chart is to see who is accountable for what and to keep the lanes really clear because only one person's name goes in each box. So this is a very simple starting point for a lot of organizations. Typically, you'll have a sales and marketing seat. Sometimes that's separate. Sometimes that's in one seat. You have operations, could be customer service or finance. Oftentimes there's a tech or IT department or seat, and an integrator. Integrator within EOS is another word for someone who is the glue of the organization. So there's not always a particular title for that person, but it can appear as a COO, general manager, president, head of operations. They're the glue that holds everything together. They're really good and care about leading and managing and being there in the details. Sometimes an organization will have a visionary. That part is not required in the EOS accountability chart. And if this stuff is interesting to you, there's a fantastic book called Rocket Fuel. I'll type it in the chat. And I think there's also a podcast around it about how when you have a visionary integrator relationship and combination in your organization, how that really acts like rocket fuel because it allows people to do things that they love and excel at and gives them the freedom to do it within this relationship. It's kind of a theme within EOS as well. So let's say you know someone who has 20 ideas every day. They don't love being in the details. They're not great at leading and managing people, but they love big relationships. They're very passionate about where the industry is going, and they really, really care about company culture as well. Oftentimes, that's a visionary type person. Integrator, as I described earlier, more in the details, really great at having difficult conversations, and they like it. They excel at it. So it's two very different skill sets. And oftentimes I run into people who are amazing and they can do both, but typically someone will have a preference. So that's where this consideration is different within the accountability chart. So it's really nice to clarify that within your organization, and people feel so set free when they have that clarity and the authority to do the things in that seat. So here's a zoom in idea of what is in a box within an accountability chart. You have the function. So like I was saying earlier, it might be finance, HR, IT, sales, marketing. It's not necessarily a job title. This is the person's name. And then the role just means their roles and responsibilities, 3 to 5. So don't get into the trap of putting their entire job description in there. These are the things that you want them to be accountable for on a day-to-day basis, and you want everyone else to know that as well. So it is complementary to the job descriptions, and oftentimes organizations use an accountability chart instead of an org chart. So here's an example, marketing/sales. LMA just means that they have direct reports, and it's a great shortcut for you need to be a good leader, you need to be a good manager so that you can have accountability within your team. Marketing, hit sales numbers, sell, account management. Again, there's this theme of being simple and to the point. And it does take some work. The accountability chart is a living document, and a lot of organizations continue to update it because in entrepreneurial organizations with like 10 to 200 something employees, things are always changing. So you want to make sure this is updated to reflect the changes. And it's also a forward-looking document you're projecting and planning out your people needs for the next 6 to 12 months. It's not just reflecting today. So I know this is a lot. Happy to slow down and answer questions on it. So just let me know. So right seat, what does that mean? Remember the people analyzer, I showed you the left side is core values. The right side helps you determine if that person is in the right seat. And so there's a shortcut, get it, want it, have the capacity to do the work. So get it, do they actually get the responsibilities and do they want to do it? Sometimes people actually don't know if that person actually wants the job. Just because they show up and do it doesn't mean they really want and love to be there. Capacity to do it. Do they have the resources, the training, and the spiritual, emotional, physical capacity to do it? So for example, capacity, a good one is, let's say someone is in a warehouse and they need to be able to lift a certain amount of weight to have the capacity for that function. So capacity can mean a couple things. All right. So this is the full people analyzer. And now you see how core values plays with, is the person in the right person and is that person in the right seat? So this helps you attach a bit more of factual information and examples to things that might feel subjective. And it'll help you figure out, oh, does this person need additional support and training, or is it a different issue? And it's great when you actually have people doing this analysis on themselves too. Helps create a great awareness and conversations between team members. All right, so this is what a bigger accountability chart might look like. All right, and then there's two kinds of people issues. Either the right person is in the wrong seat or there's a wrong person in the right seat. And the leadership team, the point of having level 10 meetings, which I'll get to in a little bit, and meeting in your EOS sessions is to really be able to talk through the people issues and problem solve that. Because you want to make sure the people you have on your team are happy and they have what they need. And if they're not the right puzzle piece for your organization, that they find that place that they are the right fit for. Okay, next piece here is data. We have all the data. If we have all the data, then let's look at it. If all we have are opinions, let's go with mine. So when you have data and you're looking at it, that's what moves along. So it's not anything groundbreaking. What we build within this is a scorecard for leadership team. So this just depends on what kind of organization you have. It varies depending on industry and where you are within your journey as an organization. So this is also a living document. Leadership team scorecard is different from department scorecards. So the idea is if you're on a desert island, let's say you have a nice drink with an umbrella in your hand, if you look at this scorecard and you can't talk to anyone else on your team, you know if it's a good or a bad week for the company. That's how you know if it's a useful scorecard. Think of it like rumble strips on the side of the road to tell you if you're going off track before something bad happens. And it's nice to have a good mix of leading and lagging indicators, outcomes versus activities. And then you have one person assigned to each measurable, and you have a goal. And the idea is to track this collectively so that you have a scorecard of 13 weeks of data for each quarter. And then you can decide as you go along, oh, is this what we should be tracking? Or do we need to adjust the measurable? Or do we need to adjust the goal? Or does this need to go to a department to track and then bump over to leadership? Here are some example measurables. And then next, we have issues. So I started to talk about issues earlier. This is so fun because issues are not just problems. It's, like I said earlier, ideas and opportunities as well. So you have an issues list and you're solving it. And as you talk as a team through these issues, it's great because you can prioritize the issues so that you know that you're putting attention to things that are necessary instead of just urgent and in front of you. So the idea of the issue solving track is to prioritize your top 3 and then go through and identify the root cause, discuss it, but not over discuss it, and then select an action step to move it along. The action step might just be the first step in solving it. It might not be the final solution, but this is the point, to move issues along to solving eventually. So that's IDS, and teams do that within weekly executive team meetings, and then also once a quarter, where they work through oftentimes long-term issues or things that they haven't been able to solve during the quarter on their own. All right, the next one is process. You want to document the core processes of the organization. So when I say core, these are the things that are so essential to your company that you need to have them documented and looked at regularly, as in at least once a year, to update them. And you want to document them at like the 20-80 rule, 20% detail, and make sure compliance is at least 80% or more, right? And so here's some sample core processes. So people, maybe it's hiring, firing, onboarding, training, marketing, sales, ops, accounting, finance, customer service. So it just depends on the organization. You document it in a very simple way and make this available to everyone. So here are some examples. The sales process, very simple, but just making sure to get everyone on the exact same page of the bare bones steps and sequence of the process, and to be on the same page of what everything means, and then get everyone doing it. So not to say standard operating procedure manuals are bad, that's not it at all. It's just, if you have the core processes that need to be updated regularly, it's fantastic to have the shorthand version of it available and make sure people are at least completely on board with that and doing it. So I like this quote: systemizing the predictable so you can humanize the exceptional. Humans are amazing, and if you can make it easier and simple, then that's where they can just go the extra mile and do more. So here we go. The next part of process, after you document it, is followed by all. That's what I was talking about earlier. Here's a very simple checklist, but it's a lot of work. As you know, when you're rolling out anything new or trying to make sure things are complied with, you have to train, then you have to measure how the training is going, and then you need to lead, manage, and see where there's accountability on this, and update the procedures and processes as you go. So oftentimes, the integrator is someone who loves things like this. They're very process oriented, and they usually take charge of this stuff with the help of perhaps someone strong in operations as well. So the next component is traction, or another word for accountability, and how we move everything along. So the two big components are the meeting pulse and rocks. So there's a 90-day world that I was talking about earlier, and it's the same day, same time, start on time, end on time, same agenda. So that's a level 10 meeting. There's a lot of videos online about how to run those. They're simple and very effective. This is an agenda for the level 10 meeting, and you see that there's a big component of it is reporting only. So you're reporting on the tools that you put in all the work to build out, and things that are off track, you move over to the issues list. So I'll start at the top. 5 minutes of checking in with your team. It's great to actually breathe and segue in, because everyone's running from Zoom meeting to Zoom meeting nowadays. You have a scorecard reporting what's on track, what's off track. Do you drop it down? Rock review. Yes. Are the goals on track or off track? Do we need to talk about it? And then headlines is like the catch-all. Oh, let's say someone had their 20th company anniversary today, or someone is retiring. Headlines like that. Or we brought in a major project. You want to update the executive team. There's a to-do list that moves things along within the level 10s. There's 7 to 14-day action items. You spend 60 minutes IDSing everything, identifying the root issue, discussing and solving, and then concluding. So you recap to-dos, you cascade messages out, and then you also rate the meeting so you know where everyone stands from 1 to 10. All right, so that is the model in a nutshell. And it was very fast, but always happy to answer questions on that. So the foundational tools, we talked about the vision traction organizer, the accountability chart, rocks or goals, the meeting pulse, and the scorecard. So those are the foundational tools that teams learn and master, and then you roll it out to the rest of the organization so that they have the buy-in to this and they are elevated in learning all of these tools, and you're talking the same language in an organization. So that's when it really, really gains momentum and movement, because you don't want everything to just be on the leadership team. You're also giving the rest of the organization tools to have suggestions, to give input, and to think creatively. There are a lot of resources for people. As Catherine asked, where do you start if you don't have anything implemented? EOS Worldwide has there's resources in the Traction Library. There's a whole library of books. So if anyone wants a book, please reach out. I will send one to you complimentary. You can download tools and videos online. You can self-implement. It's called Basecamp. And then you can reach out to an implementer like me. We are always happy to help you or answer any questions. I'm happy to send you one, Eileen. So those are resources. There's also podcasts online, and there is an app as well. So you can go on your phone and download an EOS Worldwide app, and there's audio recordings on there. Final thoughts here. You don't need to use EOS, but choose and use one system. That makes everything so much more simple for an organization. I've been in organizations and talked to them where there's a new system, which what seems like multiple times a year, and people get organizational whiplash. So it's hard to get momentum if you're always changing up what you're doing. So that's part of the idea here. Pick a system, stick with it, and be consistent so that you can get everyone on the same page and get what you want. So here's a quote from a visionary EOS leader, and this is perfect. We got at least 14 minutes for questions, or if anyone wants to like deep dive into something that I didn't get to earlier.
Fantastic. Thank you, Tiffany. What questions do you have? Either raise your hand or unmute yourself and go ahead. And while we're waiting for questions to come in, you're an EOS implementer. How does that work? And you can work with companies all over the country, I think, right? Or how does that work?
Yeah, so what we do as implementers is think of us as a guide, a facilitator, a coach. So we're not in there on a day-to-day basis. We help the team in the sessions that are once a quarter and then annually. And then we help you build these foundational tools. And it's sad, but also gratifying in that the idea is to graduate you. And then you go off and you do it on your own. And so I work with teams that are completely virtual or have members in other countries or hybrid. That's kind of the fun of it, and in all types of industries. So it just depends on the makeup of the organization. And some teams, they'll use the EOS sessions as, let's say everyone's virtual, they use it to get together and build that team health bond in person. It's a really great opportunity to do that. And then that process is usually 2 years, give or take, depending on how long it takes a team member or a team to graduate.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Catherine had a question. Does the integrator need to be an owner of the business? Not necessarily. Sometimes they are, and sometimes they're not. I have, for example, there's law firms and accounting firms. Oftentimes an integrator on the leadership team has ownership in the company, but it's not required. And so it can go either way. Does that help, Catherine?
And Catherine mentioned that she's interested in some help. Have you, Catherine, which Catherine are you? Do we have your information? And please, if any of you, whether it's Catherine or anyone, would like to either reach out directly to Tiffany, or if you have any challenge with that, info@globalchamber.org or doug@globalchamber.org. That'll get you connected as well.
Absolutely. And Eileen, I hope I'm saying your name right. You asked a great question. Do you recommend a specific moment of the growth of the company to do EOS? I would say there's the time to do it is not as important as if the leadership team is open to it and the idea of it. So teams do it like when they're preparing for different, let's say they're preparing for huge growth, or I have teams where they're about to transition ownership and they say, oh, we need this before the founder leaves. Or they've already grown I have a team that's at like 15 to 20 million. Revenue is not an issue, but they've grown so much that they have too much business and they need to figure out how they're going to do it sustainably. So that's the answer and non-answer at the same time, but to give you a little bit more detail, the psychographic of a company is really important as well. Is the leadership team really open to having conversations that are kind of difficult and uncomfortable, willing to be honest and to put in the work? Because rolling out the tools and having everyone be on the same page in an organization is a lot of work. So it's just going into it with your eyes open and willing to do the commitment for the results. So I hope that helps, Eileen. Charles had a great question. Charles said, would EOS work for a startup? It can work for startups, some better than others. So it depends on how involved investors are oftentimes, and sometimes that can be a pain point for startups if the people running the organization in the day-to-day don't really have the full authority to make these strategic decisions and are actually beholden too much. So does that answer your question, Charles? It can be a good fit as long as the investors or the board and the people who are putting in the money are okay with giving the full authority. And it's kind of the same idea with nonprofits that I've worked with as well. They oftentimes have a board, but the board is too intimately involved, which they shouldn't be in the day-to-day. It makes problems and it's potentially not a good fit.
There's a couple more questions. Brian and Nasser both have questions.
Yeah, so as in your experience in implementing in overseas companies, US foreign hybrids. Yeah, so I have a company that has an office in another country, and then their team members in different countries. And they'll usually bring people in to one central location for the sessions. And I think the only complication in that is really getting the entire leadership team in one place at one time that works for everybody. But it definitely helps everyone be on the same page, especially if they're expanding and because they oftentimes don't see each other in person too often, getting things expressly said.
One aspect of that, Tiffany, would be how does EOS translate across cultures? And in particular, like with Brian, he works with a lot of Japanese companies. Do Japanese companies use EOS, and how does that work?
Yeah, there's Japanese companies that have implemented, and I know there's at least one implementer in Japan. And the cultural idea or the cultural differences in it sometimes appear. So depending on the culture, some cultures are less open to having uncomfortable conversations. And the idea behind that is just getting everyone comfortable with it. And it might take them a little bit longer to be open to it than, let's say, a team that is based out of somewhere where they're they're unfiltered and they say exactly what's on their mind. So that could be something that comes up, and your facilitator should be able to help you with that and coach the team to getting to that place if that's where they want to be and are willing to talk through things like that way.
Your glasses are on the counter.
And then it also
Uncomfortable
depends.
conversations. Wow.
Exactly.
Okay. Got
Yeah.
it.
So for example, is this the right person in the right seat? Or hey, let's talk about why this goal didn't happen. We tried to
When do you
launch
want to
this
take a
last
shot?
why didn't this project launch properly last quarter? So it's focusing on the actions and not blaming each other. But it takes some work to have those conversations in a way where people remember, oh, we're coming to this with good intentions. It's not to take things personally or blame someone. Does that help? So it definitely depends on the culture of the organization, and sometimes there's mixture of like personalities where it presents in a similar way. So what size organization is a good fit? Anywhere from 10 to 250 team members. Usually it's a best fit if you have at least a start couple people in your leadership team, and then you have people that you can delegate to. So it sometimes, let's say when you're in startup mode, you don't have people to delegate to. You could still use some of the tools and plan things out, but it's not as good of a fit, or it won't move quite as fast until you have people to delegate and elevate within the organization. So 10 to 250 is a very big range. So small to medium sized organizations, revenue typically around 2 million plus. So it's a very big range of revenue as well. So I work with teams in around the 2 million mark up to like 20 plus and beyond that. And the other idea is that, is the team open to growth as well and change? So a lot of people say, yeah, like we're fine with change. But when it comes down to it, it can be a lot of change. And so change is hard, and you just need to be okay with repeating yourself and doing that, and understanding that if you have a system in place where people can speak and be on the same page, it can give so much clarity and make things a lot easier for people instead of feeling like, oh, this is more work, because that's not the point behind it. All right. Any other questions? We're doing great on time.
Exactly. I think that pretty much wraps it up, because we're going to need to finish up before the top of the hour. Is there anything else, Tiffany, that you would want to share, just kind of maybe in recap, and then we'll close the room?
Yeah, great question. This is my contact info. If you want to talk about anything, I am always here. I'm going to move my head to see if I can get out of the way. Yeah, I am always happy to talk and answer questions. So don't hesitate to reach out at all. And then Catherine asked a great question. What if not everyone is on board? Yeah, that's a really big consideration. And part of what implementers do is, before we even say this is gonna go forward, we have a 90-minute meeting where I go over basically all of what I just shared with you. And then I talk about what the process would look like. So everyone has a very clear idea of what they are committing to and what the timeline looks like, what it potentially looks like in an organization and for their future. So that's a fantastic question, because it doesn't work well if people are dragged into it. Some people, throughout the process, it shines a light on people who aren't a good fit within the organization. It's usually a relief for everyone involved. They realize, oh, okay, this is why this person is unhappy here, or this is why things feel like more work.
Did you just see what she sent?
So
Charles?
that is the perfect way to conclude with the perfect question. So thank you everyone for your participation and for joining today. Please let me know if there's any resources I can send you or anyone you know. I'm always happy to do that complimentary. And I hope to see you all soon on another event. Thank you, Doug, and everyone at Global Chamber.
Thank you. And for those of you live, tonight at 6:30 in Los Angeles, jump in to the Arts District. Will be in person at 6:30 for a end of year celebration of the year. Interesting time in the world, good time to stay connected and have systems like EOS as part of your business. Thank you, Tiffany, for making it so clear, so accessible, and just really great information today. Thanks everybody for joining.
My pleasure.